What are your night shift horror stories? Worked a parking garage at the airport, cleaning the top deck and noticed about 100 ravens all over a truck with a tarp over the bed. Took my flashlight expecting something awful. Noticed as I got closer the smell and the ravens taking turns going in a hole they had torn open and popping out covered in gunk. Some guy left a broke down beater with a couple animal carcasses in the back to rot. No heads. Checked the logs and the dang truck had been there since November and it was April, so everything was just thawing and breaking down. Oh god. Used to work nights at a Home Depot. There was one time where for a week or so our store stayed open 24 hours. For the most part this wasn't really a problem. Typically nobody comes shopping for home improvement items at 2 in the morning, except that one couple that came looking for marble countertops at 1:30 in the morning and the woman was wearing a nice dress. I guess there was also that one young lady who came looking for a toilet paper roll holder a little after midnight. I had just gotten off my first break, and she was wearing jorts and a one of those white with black belt stereotypical karate outfits. She was oddly specific about which road holder to get, too. But the real story lies within the insulation. It was nearing 3 in the morning and me and another guy were stocking insulation, as well as fixing the bays and some such maintenance. A bunch of big R30s had fallen in their bay and while I was sorting through them a frickin' hand came out of the mess and grabbed my arm. I lost my mind enough for not only the guy I was working with to freak out but also for my boss, who was across the store, to come check out the commotion. Turns out a homeless drunkard had come into the store at some point, and I can only assume before the night crew showed up, and had made a nest in the insulation where he fell asleep. The dude was in bad shape, too, like, far gone into whatever inebriation that we had to call the police to remove him. I was always a little more cautious around the insulation after that, for at least the time the store stayed open 24 hours. That sounds terribly itchy. Oh man, I hate recalling this story. I work night shift at a rehab facility. We have a protected gate with a camera looking down from above and one of those doorbell cameras. In the office, the camera monitor is on one wall and the doorbell monitor is on another. I was doing some paperwork and see this guy walk past, stop for a few seconds, then slowly turned around, walked back and stared up at the camera, and he kept staring. The facility is in a rough neighborhood so I'm fairly used to folks hanging out around the gate and usually ignore it, but the way he was staring was off-putting. Like, his eyes and expression were hollow and dead, almost as if he were in deep thought about something horrible. I was pretty sure he was zonked on synthetics. I used the intercom to see if he was okay but he just kept staring directly at the camera. We have a rule: if it's not hurt or trying to come through the fence, just let it be. No sense in engaging needlessly with somebody potentially hostile or fricking with the locals. Y'all. He stood there and stared at that camera for 2 hours. That same dead-eyed expression staring right at me. I did a round and came back to find him gone, which only creeped me out more. That's really creepy. I used to work night shift as a care aide in an old folks home. It was already creepy. The home was an old hospital that was converted. Some butthole kept walking around the courtyard after dark dressed as the Grim Reaper knocking on doors. It was actually really scary. He ran off and the facility got a security guard for a few weeks. I bet it ended up on YouTube. Like and subscribe guys. Not mine but I used to work at a small hotel and the manager there told me a terrifying night shift story. It was about midnight when she got a call at the front desk from a man. He said that he's with his 8-year-old daughter who dances competitively and needed advice on what she should wear. She gave him some basic fashion advice. He asked my manager, what about fishnet leggings? Do you think those are too sexy? Then proceeds to talk in graphic detail about how he thinks his own daughter has been trying to seduce him for weeks and how he's starting to enjoy seeing her dance in these cute outfits. Meanwhile my manager is looking through a computer system trying to figure out who this man is so she can call the cops. However, the room he was reportedly in was empty. The man ends up hanging the phone up before she could find out where he was truly calling from. A couple months later at around 11 PM my manager answers the desk phone. A familiar voice asked her if she could help him pick out an outfit for his daughter's next dance recital. She asked him, let me guess you want to know if she should wear fishnet leggings. The man immediately hangs up the phone. Leg. Worked at Mart and some dude would call asking about gift cards for his daughter and wanted me to explain how you could use different dildos. Yuck. Was an orderly in a hospital. Two of us were sitting in the basement office adjacent to the morgue. A guy passed our office, looking at us a little shifty, came back again and asked if we had access to the morgue. We said yes, thinking he was doing a pickup for a funeral home, but that seemed strange given it was around 12 o'clock 12:30 am. Nope, he wanted to pay us to let him in and leave him alone with the bodies for an hour. We escorted him up to security. Apparently he had tried it in the past, as security knew him. Was running the register at 24 Hours Supermarket. Stock person comes running in to produce carrying mop handle screaming you mother sucker. Out of sight. He keeps yelling sucker and smacking handle at something for like 5 minutes. I am ringing up customers and freaking out because he was losing his mind, but I am not interested in getting involved in a murder, so I ignore it. Later I find out he was chasing a rat. Completely reasonable response from the stalker. Did hospital security for about 2 months. It was small hospital out in the sticks, so we were responsible for removing patients who had passed from their rooms and transferring into the morgue freezer. We had just brought a decedent to the morgue and right before we were about to transfer them to the freezer their cell phone rang. Granted, pretty tame compared to some stories, but at the time it gave us a decent fright. That's actually really sad. Someone was trying to reach them and didn't yet know that they had died. Many years ago I briefly had a job that started at 3:30 am. The job itself was very boring, but the commute was wild. The world is at its weirdest in the very early morning. Road hazards haven't been called in yet, so one day I pulled off the freeway and discovered that the off-ramp was completely flooded, deep enough that I have no idea how my car didn't stall. But the most interesting discovery was that if law enforcement is to raid a home, they do it around 3 or 4 in the morning because that's the best chance of everyone being peacefully asleep. One day I was nearly to work when I noticed something off ahead of me. I slowed down and came up to a massive police blockade, squad cars everywhere and absolutely crawling with heavily armed officers, but all in absolute silence. They silently waved me down a side street. Just a creepy, unsettling experience. I used to be stupidly very addicted to drugs, and during my super phase, my house got raided at 9 in the morning. When I asked the police why they chose 9 in the morning, they said they usually choose 3-4 in the morning, but since we were selling they figured that's right about the time when we were settled down for the night. This didn't become a horror story until recently, but as a teen, I used to close down the gas station truck stop I worked at, alone. My boss used to pop up out of the shadows as I was closing down the till with the backup lights on. He'd be super calm and act like it wasn't creepy at 11 PM when he should be home with his family. He was even at my high school graduation. He and his wife's number's still in my phone. Anyhow, he is currently on trial for murdering a prostitute via stabbing her to death. Back in 1994. Cold case potentially solved via DNA and modern science. Well, that seems nice. Checking up on his young employee. Leaving one night from work I was followed by a log truck and it kept going faster and faster until I was at 100 miles per hour. I pulled off as the truck blew past my car, rocking it. Thing was, there was twisty turns ahead. Couldn't find the truck. Update. No, he wasn't experiencing brake failure. This was on an uphill, which the route is slow and progressively uphill. I'm not on the Grapevine or 4th of July pass. It was just hauling butt. They were running bobtail. Usually if a truck loses brakes, the driver would probably engage engine brakes and downshift. Jeepers creepers was on your butt. I worked in a residential treatment center for teen girls. One girl with some severe trauma, rape, abuse, came sleepwalking into the room screaming to please untie her while clawing at her wrists. She was begging me to help her because he's torturing me. I sat her down and pulled her bracelets and watch off. She went completely limp, then got up and went back to bed. It freaked me out seeing the raw emotion of her trauma since she was always smiling and relatively calm during the day. Another time I was doing my nightly checks and a guy suddenly walked out from behind the door coming at me. I screamed and threw my flashlight at him. It was a smiley face balloon. That second scenario sounds like the fake out in a horror movie before you turn around and the actual murderer is standing there. Work in the winter for me is plowing and snow removal. It was late and I had been out for over 24 hours at this point. Pulled over into a small cul-de-sac with the nearest house being over a 100 yards away so I could let the truck stay on so I could stay warm. 6-wheel Mack things loud. As I'm nodding off, there was a very loud bang and it felt like someone had pulled on my driver's side door handle. Luckily I always lock my truck doors. I immediately threw on every strobe rear headlight and started looking around and I saw absolutely nothing. It scared the crap out of me. Needless to say I never sleep anywhere other than lit parking lots now. This sounds a lot like exploding head syndrome. More of a very weird event. Sometimes work night shifts. One time was going home around 4 AM or so. It was pitch dark outside and very quiet. Person on a bike came out of nowhere. Said he remembered me from middle school, even said the right school name, and rode off. That'd weird as crap, bro. Worked as an evening manager at a major Hilton property. Got a complaint from a bunch of guests about the noise coming from one of the rooms. Turns out, a drunken man was beating the crap out of his wife and had the door barricaded so we couldn't get in. I called the cops, and I had to get into the room using the balcony from the next room over. I'm still traumatized by what I saw when they finally arrested him and got the wife out of the room. She was covered in blood. It was horrifying. Oh crap. I was working in the restaurant room service at a Hilton in college and, while no one actually saw what happened, my manager told me he saw the inside of the room and it was covered in blood, like on the bed, on the carpet, in the bathroom, on the walls, etc. The guy told my manager his wife got a nosebleed. Saw all kinds of crazy crap working room service at the Hilton. Used to work night shift at a 24-hour Walmart. Customers are nuts enough in the daytime, but they become weird after midnight. Once had an elderly guy come in wearing only a jean jacket and fishnet stockings. He came up to my register, leaned in, and asked if we carried anything to get rid of lice. Those plastic barriers all stores have now to protect cashiers. They need to keep those even after the pandemic ends. I lost count of the times customers got into my personal space to ask about products for fleas, lice, rashes, etc. Worked at a liquor store for a few years. One of the homeless guys, probably late 50s, that stood outside would ask for money and 9 times out of 10 if they said no he'd flash them his old wrinkly crusty package. Had to chase him off every night so people didn't have to suffer that sight. Annoyingly, people who saw me chasing him off or threatening to call the cops often gave me dirty looks like as if I hated homeless people or treat them like trash, when in actuality I was saving them from that which you cannot unsee. Sounds like something out of a bad movie. I was once staying late doing some scenic painting in a college campus theater. It was late, pitch black dark outside and very quiet in the building. A few of us were up on the stage, not really talking, just taking care of business when suddenly I saw out of the corner of my eye something go very quickly by the open door to the lobby. WTF. Then it went by again and I actually saw what it was. A guy with long hair, wearing pajamas, and no socks or shoes. He was tiptoeing in a very exaggerated way, pulling his knees up very high, and grinning. WTF. It sounds kind of funny but it was creepy as heck. We all made eye contact and one of the other painters was just about to go shut the door when the dude walked right in. He stood there staring at us for a full minute. You could have heard a pin drop. He threw his arms out to the sides dramatically and said, "I am your savior, Jesus Christ." No one responded and he eventually walked out. I guess he was hoping to get more of a reaction. The door was promptly shut and locked behind him and security called. They were not impressed. Turns out that he was a patient at some sort of group home nearby and had done this multiple times. I still get creeped out to this day if I'm working in a theater at night though. Sounds like he just wanted to put on a show for y'all. LOL. Was walking through the simulation lab for nursing students at the hospital I work at on very little sleep. All the lights were off and it was my first time working night shift. Turned a corner and saw what I thought was a person standing behind a lamp that was on. Turns out it was a mannequin holding the pull cord. Really freaked me out and I was awake after that. Don't worry about it. If the mannequin had wanted to hurt you, you wouldn't have seen it first. That might sound crazy but I know they're watching me. Worked at a distress center almost 10 years ago. Was on the 12 AM to 6 AM shift. Got about 2 phone calls each hour of the shift from the same guy saying that he's tied up in a room, his balls are tied up with leather straps, and his wife is getting banged by 5 giant black guys in the other room. Asked him each time if he's in distress and he says no every time. Kept telling him if he's not in distress then he shouldn't be calling and let him go. I just can't believe he was up from 12:06 AM to make those calls. Got to be a weird kink thing. It was 3 AM. Popular Canadian coffee shop. There is one old baker in the back that rarely interacts with me past a dirty joke or a dirtier ditty from his Navy days. Other than that I'm alone. Not another soul around the area and I expect it to remain so for at least an hour yet. I'm boxing up the day olds for the homeless shelter when I swear I see something out of the corner of my eye. It's behind me. I turn, then look down. There's a small child standing there, a native little toddler with a fur hawk staring at me intensely. I'm struck dumb with how absurd the situation is. How did he get behind the counter? I didn't hear the door open, or see him come through the counter. I scan the storefront. No one. I yell for the baker in case he has a friend or something visiting that lost their kid. He comes over, and like me, does a double take at the kid and is baffled. Kid starts muttering incoherently. I get him a glass of water and a donut hole and the baker runs out of the store to do a perimeter of the block. I call the non-emergency line and explain I have a little kid with no parents. I can't get any information from the boy, just mumbles I can't make out. Police arrive. Baker comes back, says that he can't find anyone else in the streets. The guy from the 24/7 corner store said he'll keep an eye out. Police try to speak to the kid and also get nothing but mutterings and half-hearted gestures. They take him away. I see them again for their morning coffee and they told me the little guy walked several kilometers from the nearest reservation in the dead of night to my store. He had got into his parents' medicine cabinet and just walked out of the house. I'm floored. It must have taken that poor baby hours to get to me. Seeing him behind me like that in the dead of the night still shakes me. Spooked me more than the guy that threw a pot of coffee at me, the woman that tried to stab me with a plastic spoon because I refused to give her a metal one, and the dude that waited around for 4 hours hoping to catch me alone so he could teach me a lesson since I didn't have the flavor of bagel he wanted. I was closing supervisor at a grocery store and someone managed to crap between the bathroom and the exit doors at 8:59. We close at 9 o'clock. You'd think oh there's little crap on the floor, surely people will walk around it. No, instead they continue to plow through it, so now there's crap on multiple grocery carts. The exit is scattered with fesses. There's crap on people's shoes undoubtedly, and there's crap in the parking lot. Luckily for me my less squeamish supervisor working with me that closing night volunteered to mop up the exit and bathroom, which to our surprise had also been crap on. For the record, human crap makes me immediately gag and vomit when I get a whiff of it, so I ended up puking in the trash next to the crap exit. Worked night shift at a large grocery store, one that wasn't open overnight but had a skeleton crew to work the loads and do prep and clean. I worked near the entrance, large glass doors but visually blocked off from my vantage point. Around 3 AM, I hear knocking on the doors. This isn't completely uncalled for. Usually it's someone coming in for an early shift but didn't have a keycard. Sometimes it's someone's food delivery, or sometimes a customer who thinks we are open despite clearly being closed. I approach the door. It's a man that I don't recognize, wet from the rain. He looks normal enough, but something about him unnerved me. He had that vibe to him. You know, the one where it seems like maybe they're on their way to becoming a full-blown M-head, but for now they still managed to give the appearance of functionality. He was holding his crap together just enough to appear normal, but the edges were definitely shaky. Anyway, without unlocking the door, I announced that the store was closed. He told me that he just needed my help. His car had broken down in the parking lot and he needed a boost. I didn't drive, so I told him I couldn't help him. I should have walked away there, but he was out in the rain and I did legitimately feel bad. So I told him I would see if anyone of our few crew did drive. I did find someone who was willing to help, and got the night crew manager involved as well. We went out. Turns out he was parked a bit off from the entrance, in a fairly secluded spot, and he had a lady with him. There was a similar vibe with her, almost but not exactly normal. It didn't click right away, but I figured they had been hooking up in the car in the parking lot, maybe left the radio or lights on and drained the battery. to me that explained the weird unnerving feeling. They either felt ashamed or guilty, and it was showing through. Anyway, my co-worker goes over to help give them a boost. The manager and I stay out there with him, nearby, watching. The two lovebirds kept peeking over at us a bit uncomfortably. After a few moments, the co-worker returns from the car and hurries us back inside. We don't see them drive off, which seems odd. We get inside, lock up again, and then the co-worker thanks us for staying out there with him and not leaving him alone with them. He also caught onto the unnerving air about them, and it made him worried. What worried him more was when it also turned out that there was nothing wrong with their car. As soon as you mentioned that dude had a lady with him, my brain immediately thought of a random couple looking to rob someone. I worked in an open quarry mine down in Texas. We had this storm where it rained like a mother sucker for hours and hours. Being night shift, 6:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. Supervisor, I was in charge of 8 Cat 745 haul trucks, 2 Cat 390 excavators, 6 Cat 980 loaders, 2 D8 dozers, and 1 D9 dozer. It was about 2 a.m. when I had 3 haul trucks get stuck in the bottom of the mine, just spinning their tires endlessly. It was horrible. Since we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars of production per shift, I had to get permission to shut the mine down from the superintendent and relay that to the supervisors up in the plant that dries the material, frac sand. They wouldn't shut down because I said so. I called him at minimum 13 times within an hour to get him to shut the mine down. Since it was 2 a.m, he never answered, which never happened as he always had his phone on. 3-4 of us were soaking wet and covered from head to toe in mud to the point where you couldn't even tell we were wearing neon green high-vis safety gear. We got the trucks pulled out of the mine after roughly 3 hours of using a combo of the dozers and loaders and excavators to essentially build a new road from dry materials. The superintendent got in at 6 a.m. for the 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. shift, took one look at the mine, and shut it down for the day. Turns out his phone charger came unplugged and his phone died in the middle of the night. Never knew I called. A family member of mine is a sales manager for CAT. I never get tired of hearing mine stories. I got to be in the presence of a D11 once that was headed for a sad life in a salt mine. The sheer size of that level of equipment is just unreal. I was working the Christmas Eve night shift in my local emergency department. The clock struck 4 a.m. on Christmas morning and the emergency buzzer sounded. A 74-year-old male patient had gone into a sudden cardiac arrest. The buzzer wasn't working properly, so we couldn't locate where exactly in the department it was coming from. Once we finally figured it out, we got in there and I took over chest compressions. A team of anesthetists, nurses, doctors, and 20 minutes later, we managed to get him back for just long enough for his family to come and say goodbye to him. What a crappy Christmas. Night shift RN on a covered unit. Had a code 5 a.m. Christmas morning and did not get him back, unfortunately. Imagine waking up Christmas morning to a call that your father had died. I went home and cried. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.